Hey there! Did you know Baker's always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Baker's app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Baker's today. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Ewan McGregor stars as Count Alexander Rostov in A Gentleman in Moscow, the new limited series based on the best-selling novel. Stream it on March 29th with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan. Visit ParamountPlus.com to try it free.
When you hear this, what do you feel? At IMAX, you'll feel transported by our unique sound system and crystal clear images. Like you're running across a desert planet or defending your city from a surprise invasion. With immersive IMAX sound and screens curved to show more, we take fans to the edge of their seats. Get tickets to Dune Part 2 now and experience it in IMAX's exclusive expanded aspect ratio.
In the 80s, an epidemic hit movie-going audiences. Symptoms included obscene amounts of broken glass, foot cramps caused from soaking wet socks, and an uncontrollable urge to fly to a tropical paradise somewhere like Aruba, or Jamaica, Bermuda, or Bahamas. Come on, pretty mamas. It's time to see if Cocktail is not that bad. Welcome one and all to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies. And what better way to close out our Razzies month of craptacularness? I don't even know if that's a word, but I'm going to own it anyways and put it on a t-shirt, because why the heck not? We are watching an 80s staple, and I'm sure you have seen it on VHS or DVD or on some network channel when there's a baseball game that's in rain delay, because why not? We're talking about Tom Cruise's Cocktail, and here to join me for this probably suds-filled episode, my lovely wife, Carrie. Carrie, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
I actually see a problem here, and a little bit of inside baseball as you're listening to this. Neither of us actually has a cocktail in our hands while we are drinking or while we're recording this. I feel like we've failed at this situation.
You know what the real failure is that this movie set me up for high expectations of what bar hopping should be. And, you know, the dancing, the drink shaking, the, throwing the ice and having the other bartender catch it. None of that happens in real life. And I'm really disappointed.
Okay. I'm going to ask you right now. I'm going to get this question out on Front Street right off the bat. And remember, your parents are listening. How many bottles did you break at home trying a little bit of flair bartending?
Oh, I mean, for me, it was drinking ginger ale or apple juice out of my parents' good crystalware, that wine glasses and champagne flutes.
You didn't try to spin the bottles around?
I did.
And?
Yeah. Broken glass.
Everyone knows. Everyone who has seen this film, especially when it came out, knows that they tried spinning things around and trying to toss things over their head, and then you hear the crash, and then your parents call down and go, "What was that noise?" You're like, "Nothing, Mom." Sweep.
This was actually my dad and my favorite movie. We would watch it together and throw bottles at each other. I got really good at catching really, really fast.
I'm sure there's a therapy session in there somewhere that needs to happen. Pretty sure.
Right.
Pretty sure. All right. Well, before we give this movie a therapy session and try to figure out just why it got the rating that it did, it is time to take this 80s classic and trailerize it.
In 2003, Tom Cruise was the last samurai. But 15 years earlier, he was Brian Flanagan, the last barman poet. On a quest to make millions in the mecca of money that is 1980s New York, he'll lean on his charm, wit, and good looks and end up where most people in similar circumstances in New York end up, drunk out of their mind at TGI Fridays. There he'll meet Doug Coughlin, tender of bars, spouter of philosophy, and slinger of swill. Together, they'll do what every drunk does, plan to open their own bar. And like all cocktail napkin ideas, it's doomed from the start. It's a movie that raised your expectations on what bar life would be like, only to let you down when you realize that if you try tossing bottles around a bar like that, you'd spill beer on everyone and promptly get bounced out. And you deserve it. I know I did. Tom Cruise stars in Cocktail. Rated R for round of drinks for everyone. Bars open.
It's rated R?
It is rated R.
Why? Really? I'm actually shocked.
You know what? I have a theory as to why it's rated R, and we're going to get to that eventually. It should be noted that this film's been out for a while. So I'm not even going to sit there and warn you that spoilers are going to happen. This film has been spoiled 6 Ways of Sunday on many, many, many other shows. You should have damn well seen this film by now. So I take no guilt in the things we're about to say in this episode, but I have a reason why it's rated R. I do.
Hey, Pantheon listeners, Christian Swain here. You caught me just finishing up some editing on Getting Real with John and Beth. I want to share my first experience with Factor meals for you. I think you'll find this interesting because I bet the same thing happens to you. I had just received my first shipment from Factor Meals the other day, and I was excited to try one of the prepared restaurant quality meals for myself. Anyway, I was working away and noticed it was very late, and it was my night to make dinner. I jumped up and headed to the kitchen, went to grab the ingredients for the dish I was going to make, and realized I was missing a prime ingredient. Well, I could make a run to the store, or I could make one of my new Factor meals. Actually, the choice was easy. I grabbed a cavatappi, an Italian-style pork ragu with garlic broccoli, heated the oven per instructions, and minutes later was enjoying a very delicious, nutritious, and dietitian-approved meal. It really was everything Factor Meals said it would be. No prep, no mess meals. Factor Meals are 100% ready to heat and eat. Take it from me and head to factormeals.com/Pantheon50 and use the code Pantheon50 to get 50% off. That's factormeals.com/Pantheon50 and use the code Pantheon50 to get 50% off. Hey, Pantheon listeners, Christian Swain again with something every podcast listener and music junkie needs to hear. As I'm sure you can guess, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I also listen to a lot of music, so having high-quality headphones and earbuds are absolutely critical to my day. Oh, and I have numerous pairs. In fact, I have a junk drawer of used devices that have bitten the dust, so I've tried them all. Recently, I was sent a pair of earbuds by Raycon, and the first thing I noticed was the cost. Looks like their products are about half the price of other premium brands. Okay, that's cool. And the reviews seem pretty stellar. Okay, checks that box. So I got my Raycon everyday earbuds. Nice packaging to open, and what I immediately noticed were the pack of ear tips for sizing. I'll tell you, I have small ear canals. I know, a flaw. So to see choices for the best fit, especially while exercising, oh yeah. And yes, they were immediately comfortable. Sound quality was great too. Plus, I have 3 EQ options that I love because I like more bass in my music and less in the podcasts. 8 hours of playtime for the battery is great as well. Surround sound, noise canceling, and awareness mode all included. I think I'm in business, and I just realized I've had them in all day. Like I said, super comfortable. Go to buyraycon.com/Pantheon today to get 20% off your Raycon order plus free shipping. That's right. You'll get 20% off and free shipping at buyraycon.com/Pantheon.
before we get to that, we're going to talk about who's in this film. The film stars Tom Cruise, Brian Brown, Elizabeth Shue, Kelly Lynch, Lawrence Luckenbill, Gina Gershon, and Lisa Barnes. However, there is a considerable, sizable, almost starring list in this. Gonna start with the character of Jordan, as played by Elizabeth Shue. I'm going to run through some of the names of people who were considered or who were actually offered the role. And I want you to, once you hear all the names, let me know if there's anyone in this list who you could actually see playing Jordan. Jennifer Grey, who you would know from Dirty Dancing, Demi Moore, Ali Sheedy, Jodie Foster, Daryl Hannah, Sarah Jessica Parker, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Molly Ringwald, and Heather Graham.
They chose wisely.
I think they did.
They did.
I do think they did. There's a role that I could have seen Daryl Hannah play in this film, but not Jordan.
Yep.
Jennifer Jason Leigh. I want to circle back to that one here. Yes, Heather Graham, who was actually offered the role, but she turned it down because she was shooting License to Drive at the time, I could have seen in the role as well. But Jennifer Jason Leigh, and if you've seen her in Backdraft, you know that she could play this role very well, because it's not like Jordan's a ditzy, blonde kind of bimbo kind of thing. Jennifer Jason Leigh, I think, could have done this role, but I think you're right. I think Elizabeth Shue was the perfect choice for it.
You know who's missing from the list?
Who?
Meg Ryan.
I could see Meg Ryan in this. Absolutely. Absolutely. But nothing wrong with Elizabeth Shue.
No, but some of the choices, though, I find really surprising.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, Ali Sheedy and Molly Ringwald, of course, were both in The Breakfast Club. So there's that possibility. Sarah Jessica Parker, that one makes sense, especially when you consider that you did eventually cast Elizabeth Shue. Demi Moore, of course, like she was the big thing at the time as well, right? Part of the Brat Pack.
I could see Demi Moore in a different role as well.
Yeah, I could absolutely. And Jennifer Grey, who of course was she was Baby in Dirty Dancing. I could have seen her in this role as well.
Possibly. She was the one that I was kind of like, okay.
Yeah. But again, Elizabeth Shue for the win.
They chose wisely.
In the role of Doug Coughlin, as played by Brian Brown, here is the list of actors. And again, this is all according to IMDb.com, who were either considered or were offered and were otherwise occupied. Paul Newman, who was actually the studio's choice for this, Jack Nicholson, Dustin Hoffman, Harrison Ford, Sam Neill, Joe Pesci, Paul Hogan, Tommy Lee Jones, Dudley Moore, and Michael Caine.
Ooh.
I know who I would pick off this list, but I'm curious who you would have gone with.
Paul Hogan.
That's exactly the person I was thinking of.
He would have been
about the same age as Brian Brown in this.
He would have been good. One thing I found casting wise is that, and I don't know if this is what's this intended, but he seemed older than the role would have.
Well, starting your day with red eyes is going to do that to you.
I guess so. But you know what? I think they made an excellent choice.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, Coughlin's Law. When you're about to say something incredibly offensive, start with Coughlin's Law, because then you could just pass the buck. It's kind of like he's talking about himself in the third person. Like, I'm about to say something really mean, but it's Coughlin's Law.
This is just my way of excusing what I'm about to say for the next couple of times here. And then, of course, in the role of Brian Flanagan, who was played by Tom Cruise, you have to listen to this list of people who were considered or who were offered and otherwise occupied. Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, Charlie Sheen, John Travolta, Rob Lowe, Steve Guttenberg, Jeff Bridges, Michael Keaton, Matthew Broderick, Ted McGonley, who played Mr. Darcy on Married with Children, Mel Gibson, Tom Hanks, Bill Murray, and Keanu Reeves.
No, but you know what? John Travolta would have been a fascinating Coughlin.
See, I was thinking, like, of this list, Rob Lowe would have been an interesting choice too. But
for Flanagan?
Yeah. He was young enough at the time.
I think they chose really, really well with Tom Cruise because I think it's really treading on something here. And I'm gonna put this out there and then I'm gonna double back. So I think that it's kind of the Tom Hanks rule. And Tom Cruise was probably the only choice that they could have put for Brian Flanagan because of his incredible smile and charm. Because if the actor doesn't have that chemistry, if they don't have that charisma, really, I mean, he seemed like a bit of a jackass. I'm sorry, but young Flanagan was a bit of a jackass. And if he doesn't have that charisma, then forget it. And it's just something with Tom Cruise's smile that as much as he's making really bad life choices, he can get by on the smile. And it just seems to be okay.
There's a name that I was wondering if I was going to see on this almost starring list, and it's not there, and I think it's a missed opportunity. Kurt Russell would have been perfect in this role. I'm not saying Tom Cruise wasn't good in the role. I'm just saying if you're looking for someone else to cast or you're trying to do a recast here, Kurt Russell would have been perfect.
I would have put him as Coughlin.
No. All you have to do is watch him in a movie like Tango and Cash and realize that no. 80s Kurt Russell would have killed that role. The movie was directed by Roger Donaldson, who listened to the list of films that he has on his resume here. No Way Out, Cadillac Man, Species, Dante's Peak, 13 Days, and The Recruit. So this movie was in very, very, very good hands. It was written by Haywood Gould, who had also written the book, Cocktail, that this movie was based on, although apparently Haywood Gould does not like this film because he feels like it missed the point of the book itself. This film also has an almost titled selection for a little bit before it was released, because it was originally filmed as Cocktail, and then they were thinking, oh no, we're just going to change the film to Bartender. Realized that was a bad idea and then changed it back to Cocktail, because yes, Cocktail is so much better. This movie is in the section of the 100 most enjoyably bad movies ever made in the official Razzie Movie Guide, a book written by John Wilson. But now let's get to the accolades for this film. And we're going to start with the good. And the good begins and ends with Kokomo. At the 1989 BMI Film and TV Awards, this song won for Most Performed Song from a Film. You think? At the 1989 Golden Globes, it was nominated for Best Original Song from a Film, lost to Two Hearts by Phil Collins from the movie Buster, and Let the River Run by Carly Simon from the movie Working Girl. And at the 1989 Grammys, the song was nominated for Best Song Written Specifically for a Movie or TV Show, lost to Two Hearts by Phil Collins. And the Beach Boys were also nominated for Best Pop Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal for the song, lost to the song Brazil by the Manhattan Transfer. And then we get to the other side of the scale here. At the Yoga Awards, the film was nominated for Worst Foreign Film of the Year, lost to The Abyss. And to that I say, the hell? The Abyss? I'm shaking my head. At the 11th Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, it was nominated for Worst Picture, lost to Caddyshack 2. And then at the 9th Golden Raspberry Awards, Tom Cruise was nominated for Worst Actor. He lost to Sylvester Stallone in Rambo 3, which had my favorite Rambo line of all time. What's that? The blue light. What does it do? Turns blue.
Oh, Stallone would have been a great Coughlin.
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh,
no.
Yeah.
Well, you make a drink. I don't know.
Oh, come on.
Roger Donaldson was also nominated for Worst Director. He lost to Blake Edwards for Sunset and Stuart Raffel for Mac and Me. And yes, we've done an episode on Mac and Me and Caddyshack 2. Go back and check those episodes. This movie, however, did win for Worst Screenplay and Worst Picture. did not hurt it at the box office. According to IMDb.com, this film has a budget of $20 million. Domestically, it made $78 million, and worldwide, $171.5 million. When it was released on the July 29th, 1988 weekend, and goddamn, I feel old saying that, this film debuted at number 1 with $11.789 million, knocking out Who Framed Roger Rabbit in its 6th week. Also in the top 5, listen to this top 5 from that weekend, okay? Cocktail number 1, Who Framed Roger Rabbit number 2, Coming to America in number 3, Die Hard at number 4, and Midnight Run at number 5. Like,
that's an excellent round of movies.
Right? 1988 movies served. Also debuting that weekend, Monkey Shines debuted at number 12 with 1.9 million, and The New Adventures of Pippi Longstocking debuted at number 16 with $933,462. But the reason why we are here, and not because it's Razzies month, because of course this film won Worst Film of the Year, is the critics. Over at Metacritic, this film has a Metascore of 12. And over at Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is 58%. So even that's a college fail. The tomatometer, 9.
I don't get it.
9 freaking percent.
I don't get it.
For a film that is in the list of 100 most enjoyably good bad films.
This was my favorite movie growing up.
9%.
I don't get it.
Well, let's deep dive. Let's figure this out. Tom Cruise is Brian Flanagan. How was he for you?
Amazing. I mean, absolutely perfect. Like, I'm doing the math here, and I don't even want to divulge how old I was because I've learned today that it was a restricted movie. But if it, helps with the math, I was drinking apple juice out of my parents' champagne flutes that I was breaking as I was throwing them across the room at my dad. Good times, good, yeah, good family memories.
We'll get to that therapy session.
Oh my God. Okay, really? 9%.
9% tomatometer.
That's
12% Metacritic score.
Not even double digits.
Nope.
What the hell? I don't get it. It was a good movie. It was enjoyable to watch. I'm confused.
Okay, well, first things first. Let's take a look at Brian Flanagan, the character, not the actor, the character.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Flanagan is not a good person.
He's not a good person.
At all. He's
motivated and driven by the almighty dollar.
Yep.
And you know what? I think in meeting Coughlin, what was his first name though? Doug. In meeting Doug, I think it was absolutely a perfect pairing. Okay, I'll admit he wasn't a good guy. He certainly
there's not many good people in this damn film.
He wasn't a great boyfriend either to Elizabeth Shue. Okay, so but he wasn't a bad guy. He was just misguided. He would allow himself to make really dumb decisions for $50.
Well, let's be honest here, okay? The movie starts off with him making a dumbass decision. He's going to New York to make his fortune. He's one of these people that it's constantly reading these, how to make $1 million and how to be a better person and how to succeed in the business world kind of book. So he's clearly easily influenced by everything that he reads, and he thinks that just based on charm alone, he can do this. He's going to all these businesses like, I can do it. I'm a hard worker. I'm a fast learn, and I got a good smile, and I'm a handsome man. And no, bad move. And then, smartly goes to school, right? Goes to take all these business courses because you know what? everyone is saying you don't have the credentials, you don't have the certificate, you don't have the diploma, you don't have the education that we're looking for. Then he goes to do it. And like all students, he's working a job in order to pay his way through. Okay, cool, no problem, right? But got an ego, got an attitude. And once you see him start to interact with different women, and his smile and his personality, it stops being charming and becomes almost predatory. He's after the almighty dollar.
Now, who's more predatory, though? Marrying a millionaire just what? Because she's a millionaire?
Oh, Doug ain't no saint here at all.
Like stealing your best friend's girl because you can? Because you want to prove that you can? No. Doug was the baddie.
Taking a $50 bet to see if you can bet an older girl at the bar because you can, because someone says you can't. After spending a lot of time with Jordan and, having a good time. Not a smart move.
No, he wasn't a smart man.
But I think some of the maybe critic reaction to this kind of character. And again, I will admit that when the author of the book says he doesn't like the film because it's not really like the book that he wrote, critics are going to lean on that. I'd be curious to hear what the Adapted to Screen podcast and our friends over there would say about the combination of this book and this movie. But keep in mind that this film came out a year after the movie Wall Street. A movie that basically made you think from the bad people in that film that greed was not something to be admired. And then this movie comes out. And your main star is all about chasing the almighty dollar. And I think it's one of those things where public sentiment is starting to change away from greed is good. And Brian Flanagan is still that greed is good kind of character. Despite the charm, the Tom. Like, honestly, if you put anyone else in that role, this movie gets worse than a 9%. And we're not talking about Cocktail anymore because we can't defend it. Tom Cruise does a very good job of making this like a very flawed human being. So I'll give him credit for that.
I don't know, though. He had the redeeming scene where he ripped up Dad's check. He couldn't be bought out of, his future child's life or children.
Okay, but how many things did he do to get to that point?
Okay, he made some mistakes along the way, but he's also young and learning, right? Like, I mean, that's definitely not defending. I'm not defending him. He made some really dumbass decisions. Here's hoping that, after the end of the movie, after the wedding, he settles down, smartens up, maybe goes back to school, but even if he does continue on with Cocktails and Dreams, then okay, but I don't think he was, I don't, you're painting him as a really bad man. I don't think he's a bad man. He's just short-sighted.
He is young,
misguided,
dumb, and full of cum. That's pretty much what it boils down to. But I get it. We're not always going to like the main character of a film. And even when we were rewatching this and he's trying to explain to Jordan what happened in Jamaica, you're like, you're making this way worse for yourself. You say bad, dumb things.
Yeah. Maybe stop talking.
I think that's what it is. I think Brian is just dumb. He's probably the kind of guy who got by on his looks a lot. And then he goes to New York. There's a lot of people getting by on their looks and charm and wit. And he's all of a sudden no longer the big fish in a small pond. He jumped to the ocean and it's sink or swim. And then he meets Doug Coughlin. Brian Brown. How was he for you?
Oh, he was, you know what? I was so excited to rewatch this, and there's just something so charming, yet he's so good at being such an ass. Like, he's just he plays it so well. And I don't know, like, I don't know if it's that, I mean, his charm, his charisma, his witty banter, disguised as, Coughlin's Law, but when he says something scathingly sarcastic and still yet incredibly astute. I don't know. He was so likable, yet, when he turned, still so unlikable, and yet then he shows up again, and it's like, oh.
Yeah. Coughlin is the cautionary tale for Flanagan. And the thing is, the two are very similar characters. The difference, though, is that Flanagan's a dreamer. He has a vision of what he wants to do. And Coughlin's goal, I think, is really just to be the smartest guy in the room, or at least the one that survives longest. He is, for lack of a better term, a barstool prophet. And lots of basically alcohol-fueled logic, admittedly. And here's the thing. And yes, spoiler alert. The reason why this film gets an R rating, and it's not the sex. It's not the sex. It's because Doug Coughlin does commit suicide. And for some people that would be very triggering. And I could see why it would get an R rating if that is the basis for it.
Okay, but even at that, it was implied. Like,
oh no, you don't see
I
it.
Think,
but the very thought of suicide can be triggering to some people. So I understand why it got the R rating that it did.
I'm actually, okay, with that said, and since you mentioned that scene, in rewatching it, I was actually kind of surprised because the way they left it, you almost expect him to be found dead.
Mm-hmm.
But I would think more of like, liver function or like from alcoholism.
Yeah, from alcohol poisoning. Yeah.
Right. Because where they left it, he passes out.
Right.
So I think had they just left it at that, and then Flanagan goes back, he's dead, his friend is dead. But that was also the pivotal point of getting back together with Jordan, is that his best friend died. Like,
well, at this point too, Flanagan is starting to turn his life around. He's already stepped away from being very similar to Coughlin in that he was a boy toy. He was, with a rich girl. He really didn't have to do anything, but that's not Flanagan. Flanagan still wants to achieve his success, where Coughlin had gotten to the point where he didn't have to do anything. He just had to be. And for Coughlin, that was okay to a point because he's, he wasn't an ambitious person. He was just content with being the smartest guy in the room. And that meant not outsmart, but basically getting people to do things beneath themselves to prove that Coughlin was better than them. The whole $50, I gotta get my money back, right? It wasn't about the money, but proving that Coughlin was right. And the problem is, he had gotten to the point where he realized that he'd gotten to this point that he had hoped for his whole life, and realized that it's not what he wanted. In the end, he was much more alone than when he was tossing bottles and, pouring drinks beside his friend. Coughlin's the cautionary tale that Flanagan needs. Flanagan needed to come back and see him dead to really kind of shake him to his core. But Flanagan was already on the come up again. Coughlin was the point of like, you have to change. You absolutely have to change. But I think in Coughlin, Brian Brown has I would say, career defining role for him because, as we're watching this, I'm like, well, what the heck else has Brian Brown been in? This is that role for him. Like, everyone has that role where, like, oh, this actor, oh yeah, from this film. Brian Brown, oh yeah, Coughlin from Cocktail. This is literally probably the best role. Coughlin's Law. When someone hands you a juicy role, you take it.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth Shue, who played Jordan, really likable in this. And I think you're right. I think she was the perfect person for this. But how was Elizabeth Shue for you?
You know what? I really, really liked her. Like from the moment that, from the moment that they met, but when she goes back to the bar and then Coughlin reappears in Flanagan's life, and you can kind of tell there's that kind of like, are they friends? Are they really friends? Like, is this really, but just her one lines, she says something under her breath about him. And it's like, kind of like, okay, yeah. Like she's witty and she's so damn likable, even though she comes from money, she's still waiting tables and like living her life, like, yeah, I really, really liked her and I was really rooting for her. And the minute that Brian decided to do her wrong, it was like, no, bad. Don't be an idiot.
You don't do that to Elizabeth Shue. You don't.
Yeah, it's not worth the $50. Trust me.
Think about the 80s for Elizabeth Shue, right? The Karate Kid, Adventures in Babysitting, this movie, and then Back to the Future Part 2, and then Part 3, and then in 1991, Soap Dish. Like, this is a good stretch for Elizabeth Shue. And she really is this good in it. Like, absolutely. And the thing is, I like the fact that, like a lot of people in this film that Flanagan and Coughlin deal with, yeah, she's from a rich family, but she's not. She's a free spirit. And yes, rich kid privilege. I'm sure daddy's helping pay for the apartment, but she's got a job. She's waiting tables. She's basically living a regular life, even though she has that rich kid privilege here. But as the moral center, Elizabeth Shue was a phenomenal choice for this.
There was a line where her dad was like that she doesn't always think things through or think for herself. And I'm just like, wait a minute, that does not seem fair at all.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Jordan feels like someone who's really starting to figure out their own life and what it is they want to do. I mean, she's got a studio apartment where she's doing a lot of painting and artwork while she's bussing tables. She's in that formative discover yourself years. You know who the character reminds me of? And we've already talked about this movie on this show before. Leah Thompson's character in Howard the Duck. And how she's young and in a band and still trying to figure out her way in the world kind of thing. Even though not a rich kid by any stretch of the imagination. But I could see Leah Thompson in this role too.
It's funny because I thought you were going to mention Oscar's daughter.
Oh,
in the
Marissa
Stallone
Tomei.
movie Oscar, yeah.
Well, definitely not as annoying as Marissa Tomei's character in that movie. And yes, Oscar is another one that we have talked about, and I freaking love that film. Elizabeth Shue brings a groundedness to this film, right? She's not here for laughs. She's not here for quirk. And while, yes, obviously her and Tom Cruise make out and whatnot in this film, it's not exploitative at all. It's playful and innocent whenever she's involved in that. And I think that's a credit to Elizabeth Shue and what she brought to the role.
I love that her character was an artist too.
Yeah.
Like that one little scene in her studio apartment where he's like, is that our waterfall? It's kind of like, it's just nice. It's nice to see that she has such talent.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and yeah, I mean, clearly, taking a waitress job just to go out on her own, and maybe make something of her art.
It's time to start a trend with this movie. The trend is rich people suck.
Huh? Where are you going with this?
We start with Kelly Lynch, who played Carrie, Doug Coughlin's wife in this. How was Kelly Lynch for you?
I love her name.
Well, yes. Spelled right. Yes.
Yeah. Which I didn't even realize. I mean, how many times have I watched this movie? Countless. I never actually caught the boat.
Well, maybe stop throwing glasses around while you're watching the film, and you'll see the things.
Well, clearly drunk on my apple juice.
Right? It's that white grape juice because it looks like champagne.
Ginger ale. Sparkly.
I mean, here's the thing. If Coughlin is the cautionary tale for Flanagan, Kelly Lynch is what Jordan becomes if Jordan's not a good person. Because think about it, right? Carrie is a rich girl who married Coughlin to piss off her dad, and she just needs to be the center of attention. She's going around kissing him. Like, she's literally a shitty person.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that, not that she knew, but she leaves her husband on a boat passed out.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly had too much to drink, and she's whining that she wants to go home, and then hits on his best friend. Like,
right.
I'm sorry, but she's the person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, no doubt, Doug just wanted out of the marriage, and I know that there were other issues, and he was losing money, but I mean,
which she didn't know about either, too.
It wasn't about the money.
No.
I think he just wanted an easy way out. Didn't want divorce because he couldn't afford that.
I find it fascinating because we have talked about Kelly Lynch on this show before when we talked about Roadhouse, another film that is on the list of the 100 most enjoyably bad movies ever made. And I didn't like her character in that movie either. And again, the thing is, though, with Roadhouse, we were supposed to like Doc, and we didn't. Here, we're not supposed to like Carrie. I mean, we like you. We don't like this Carrie.
No, you know what, though? So she plays it well.
I was just about to say that. Here is a person. The character, not Kelly Lynch. And we don't like the bad person. Bad person, bad. Kelly Lynch, good job. Carrie, bad.
I don't think we even really got to know her enough aside from the fact that she was wealthy and seemed to be just kissing everybody.
Yep. She was wealthy. She was the center of attention. She pointed, she wanted, she got. That's the kind of personality she was. And that's all we really needed to know about her. And that kind of personality probably almost emphasized why Doug felt so alone.
I think aside from, hitting on her husband's best friend, I think I kind of almost wanted to see more bitchiness of her. Like, I kind of wanted to see maybe more. Like, I feel like we got to know the chick that Brian Flanagan picked up in Jamaica and
Bonnie,
and then moved back in with very quickly. We got to know her character a bit more than Carrie.
Yeah. But the thing is, we knew all that we needed to know about Carrie is that she's self-centered and oblivious to just how bad a person she is. She's rich, and that's all that matters to her. And I think that's really all you needed out of her. And I think Kelly Lynch, by being so apathetic in this role, it solidified that this was a bad person. And I think that's the thing too. Flanagan was a bad person, not a bad person, young, dumb, and full of cum, but Tom Cruise made him at least likable. We're not supposed to like Carrie. Carrie is part of the downfall of Doug. And if we don't like the character, then Kelly Lynch did a very good job of it. But since you mentioned Bonnie, as played by Lisa Barnes, Brian's sugar mama. And again, rich people suck category. How was Lisa Barnes as Bonnie for you?
She literally, character-wise, seemed old enough to be his mama. Like, that was just weird. It was weird and it was upsetting and it was really disappointing. But I see that it had to happen for character development. But, yeah, I don't know. From, like, the moment that her character's introduced at the bar, it's like, don't do it. Don't. Oh, you did. Oh, you dumbass.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't. Just, you know what? Close up the bar, go back and jack off and just forget. Don't do it. I will pay you, Brian Flanagan, the $50 to just don't. Just don't hurt Elizabeth Shue.
No. But I think in Carrie, Doug's wife, Kelly Lynch is just has a rich daddy. And that kind of works for Doug. Here, at least Bonnie has made her own money. So she's a businesswoman. She's actually in charge. So you could see why Brian, in making that bad choice, would then go back to New York with her because she's a businesswoman, because she has done what he wanted to do. So it makes sense that Brian actually did go back to New York with her. And then it made sense why he left.
But just think about it, though. If Brian knew that Jordan was a waitress, and if, his ultimate life goal was to create this Cocktails and Dreams, the ideal bar, between his best friend, the barstool prophet, Hoglin's Law, and his love of his life, who is familiar with the service industry. She's a waitress. She's smart, business savvy. Add to the fact, and little known to him, but that her dad, she came from money, you know.
But he didn't know that, and she wasn't telling it.
Okay, but it still would have, just even the power trio of Doug and Jordan and Brian, they could have made something really incredible.
Oh, they absolutely could. But the problem is Doug wasn't interested in being a partner. He was talking about Carrie kind of helping fund him opening a place, and that Brian was going to be working for Doug. Not that they were going to be partners. Doug said that, and you're going to come back and you're going to end up working for me. And this whole $50 bet of, go have sex with Bonnie. You can't get that girl to have sex with you. Again, this was another thing of Coughlin trying to be, or at least prove that he's better than, or knows everybody better than they know themselves. The thing is too, Bonnie is such an 80s character. Like doing workout videos when you wake up in the morning and wanting some like weird vegetable smoothie because it's going to have all that in it. Holy crap, Bonnie is an 80s trope, but played well.
Mm-hmm.
Gina Gershon. This is actually one of her first films. She was the photographer, the first conquest for Brian. How was Gina Gershon for you?
You know what? She was great, but it was so weird. I mean, I know why they did it the way they did, but they showed the scene where the two of them are together in the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And then yet, like the whole breakup, the whole like her whole last thing that she said was, maybe you'll learn from, talking about our love life. It's like, but it was known that they were an item. So like, I don't know, the weird fact that it all went together and went down the way it did. It was almost kind of like, yeah.
I think her character was basically there, not necessarily to be the first conquest for Brian kind of thing, but more as a way to just show how much of a failed, flawed human being Doug is, as opposed to Brian.
And Brian too.
Well, Brian, yes, but Doug more so, because Doug was the one that basically had to get his $50, right? He had to be proved right. He had to be proved right. Also, with this movie, this is one of 2 movies that Gina Gershon acted in that won for Worst Picture at the Razzies. This and Showgirls. And yet she's been in a ton of other phenomenal films. And again, I liked her in this. She worked in this. But I have a question. I have a question that has boggled my mind. And it boggled my mind again when we watched this. She's a photographer, assumingly a good one. How does a photographer in New York afford a pad like she's got with a fireplace there? Like, that's a decent spot. Like, how much money is she bringing in taking pictures? We've learned from Spider-Man and through Peter Parker that you don't make much money taking pictures.
Well, I think that was Doug's point. Is where is she getting the money? Right? And furthermore, how did Doug do it? Like, first of all, clearly her heart wasn't with Flanagan, because there's no way that the best friend would have been able to pull that off.
Well, think about it. I mean,
she wasn't a good person either.
Oh God, no. I mean,
I think this is an excellent, example of like personality. Like all of the actors did it so well. And I would be really curious to read the book and see how many liberties they took with the movie.
I mean, here's the thing. Coral to me feels like someone who is, for lack of a better term, a star. Because she's taking pictures of Brian, and like, I'm going to make sure that, you're going to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. You're going to be famous, all this kind of stuff, right? And then all of a sudden you're not going to be famous, right? Because Doug told her something. But clearly, if she's jumping him because she thinks he's going to be famous, then she's as much about the money that he is as well.
Well, that's exactly my point. Like, clearly, for her to be swayed like so easily. And she was cold about it too. Mm-hmm. I mean, to go and kiss his best friend in front of him, that's hard.
Right.
Like, that's harsh, man.
And I think that also
a dick move.
It is, but it's funny because it comes back around, because again, when Carrie then tries to make it with Brian while Doug is, drunk, passed out, and probably dead at that point in the boat, and Brian doesn't go all the way with her, it then makes sense. Like, oh, so this is where Brian steps away from the path that Doug tread.
Again, there's really not a good person in this. Well, Jordan's
a good person.
I like her.
But let's talk about her father, as played by Lawrence Luckinbill. Now, I did mention that this was one of 2 movies that won for Worst Picture of the Year at the Razzies for Gina Gershon. Lawrence Luckinbill has also done the 2 movies that have won for Worst Picture. But in his case, he went back to back, because there was this, and then there was Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. But how was he in this for you as Jordan's father?
You know what? I think his character obviously necessary. Did we ever find out what he did exactly?
No, he's just rich.
How did he have a penthouse on Park Avenue?
Well, clearly he's good at what he does, whatever he does. And that's the thing too. Like, I don't think we needed to know what it was that he did. We just needed to see that he had made enough money in order to be able to live the life that they lived.
I mean, he definitely had anger issues. And not only that, but what bellman actually goes and starts throwing punches on behalf of their tenants? I don't understand.
The kind of doorman who works in a place that has someone who lives in the penthouse and probably pays a ton of money to be there. I mean, here's the thing. Jordan's father, his anger towards Brian makes sense. And I'm sure if anyone did our kids dirty like that, you'd be getting people to throw punches at other people too. We'd probably just have to take a loan out to be able to do that. But still.
I sure as wouldn't be trying to buy someone out of someone's life.
But the thing is, he's rich. He's rich, so he thinks that everything is solved with money. I understand why he tried to do it. I think in the role, he makes sense. He did a very good job. Again, we're not supposed to like Jordan's father. So when they walk out and when he says, you're cut off, you're done, you're on your own, we're supposed to cheer. Because he is so angry, because he's so volatile towards Brian. I get it. It makes sense. I think he did a good job. He's one of the few rich people in this whose motivations I understand, even though we don't like rich people because of this film. Can we talk about the soundtrack?
Oh, yes.
For a moment, because
oh, yes.
this film is basically the soundtrack. I need to point these stats out, okay? This soundtrack peaked at number 1 in Australia, Iceland, Canada, and New Zealand, was number 2 on the Billboard 200. It is 4 times platinum in the US and Australia, and it's diamond in Canada and platinum in New Zealand. Like, this soundtrack was everywhere. Freaking everywhere. But I'm going to ask you 2 questions here. The first one is, obviously the biggest songs off of this were Kokomo and Don't Worry, Be Happy. Were they, to you, overplayed at the time?
No. I mean, I overplayed them, yes. I actually had not 1, but 2 cassettes because the first one I played so much that the tape snapped. You know what? I mean, the soundtrack of my youth right there. And it's cool, right? Because I admit I was young when this movie came out, but here I am rocking to Kokomo and
Hippie Hippie Shake and Don't Worry Be Happy.
And what was that song when they're in the bar and they're first slinging the drinks? Bless my soul, what's wrong with me? I'm all shook up. Woo, woo, yeah.
By Ry Cooder, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, listen to this track listing, okay? Wild Again from Starship, which was played during the opening scene. Powerful Stuff from the Fabulous Thunderbirds. Since When from Robbie Neville. Don't Worry, Be Happy by Bobby McFerrin. Hippie Hippie Shake from the Georgia Satellites. Kokomo from the Beach Boys. Rave On by John Cougar Mellencamp. It's a cover of a Buddy Holly song, and I've played that song. It's a fun song to play. All Shook Up, Oh I Love You So from Preston Smith, and Tutti Frutti from Little Richard. Now, some of the songs that weren't on the soundtrack included Shelter of Your Love from Jimmy Cliff, When Will I Be Loved from the Everly Brothers, Hypnotize and Boogie from David Wilcox. That song's a banger, right?
Yeah.
Addicted to Love from Robert Palmer. Like, this soundtrack is 1988. This is one of those soundtracks where everyone had it in their collection. You had to. It was the album to have. You could almost take a look at this and Dirty Dancing as equal in defining the moment, defining the zeitgeist. So I'm going to ask you, on the Mount Rushmore of movie soundtracks, so 4 faces, is the Cocktail soundtrack on the Mount Rushmore of movie soundtracks?
Oh my God, yes. Definitely.
I think Dirty Dancing's got to be up there too. Because again,
Footloose.
Yeah. Footloose would definitely be up there, especially for 80s films.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're doing an 80s film, Mount Rushmore soundtracks, yes, definitely Cocktail, Dirty Dancing, Footloose for sure.
Roadhouse had a pretty decent soundtrack. I say that only because I'm a huge Jeff Healey fan.
Right. I mean, I might put Rocky IV up there, but then again, I'm broken in many different ways, but I still love the Rocky IV soundtrack, especially the Vince DiCola montage music. But that, again, that's just me. But yeah, it's one of those things where Kokomo kind of became almost a thing unto itself, right? It was that song. It was played freaking everywhere. And no, it didn't win a Grammy, and no, it didn't win a Golden Globe, but it had to be in the conversation. I don't disagree that Two Hearts by Phil Collins wasn't a good song. I absolutely agree it was a good song. So was the one from Carly Simon from Working Girl. They were phenomenal songs. And yes, I think the Working Girl one was probably the better of the two of them. Let the River Run. But Kokomo was everywhere. And while the others may have been better songs, award-wise, I think Kokomo probably has the longer cultural impact than the others.
Well, Don't Worry, Be Happy as well.
True, but Don't Worry, Be Happy was a single before it was on the soundtrack.
Fair enough, but I mean, you can't possibly hear the ooh, 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 without like...
Don't worry.
Without smiling. You can't literally hear that song without being happy.
Okay, but tell me anyone, in a travel agency isn't looking at the brochures going, Aruba, Jamaica, Bermuda, Bahamas,
I mean, sure, it did great things for the travel industry, but I would dare say that Don't Worry, Be Happy far makes me happier than Pharrell's Happy Song.
Oh.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. I just pictured that Batman slapping the shit out of Robin meme. It's like, because no, you're not. No, you're not.
Here, let me see my hand clap.
Okay. Before we get to our MVPs, I'm going to ask you, because we are talking about a cultural icon of a film with an absolutely criminally low critic score. Is there one thing you would change in this film that you think would make it better? At least in the critic's eyes.
I think that they did very well with making the characters as unlikable as they did. And again, I've said it before, and I think it's Tom Cruise's charisma, like, and not him as a person, because I know there's like a whole thing about, Tom Cruise, and I don't know, like, I'm not even going to go there, right? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he misguided? I don't know. Who knows? But as far as that smile and the charisma that Tom Cruise brought to the role.
That 1988 Tom Cruise look, yep.
Well, I mean, he certainly hasn't aged much, in, what year is it? Like, I swear he still has that quintessential, just that smile. Like, he doesn't even have to say anything.
For the record, this film, 36 years old.
Yeah, I was trying not to do the math, but there it is.
There's the math right there.
It is.
Right on Front Street. I think one thing you could have done was show Flanagan really plotting out how everything he was doing was going to lead to that goal. I think if you made Flanagan a bit more goal-oriented instead of flying by the seat of his pants, but then again, too, it would also take out the young and dumbness of Flanagan.
That wasn't him, though. I don't think
he wasn't a planner, no.
He didn't, I don't think he had a vision.
Oh, he had a vision.
I don't think so, because...
He had a very general vision.
No. Because when he was starting, all he wanted...
was to make $1 million.
Was to make money. He didn't know how he was going to do it. It's not like he had a very definitive life goal.
No. His life goal was to be rich.
He was, exactly. But he had no idea how to get there.
Yeah.
And he was going to get there by any means possible. Whether it be banking, whether it be in marketing. What other job interviews did he land? Like, I mean, sure, he did a business course, but
Yeah, he was starting the path. And maybe if we saw a bit more redeeming factors in Brian, I could see that.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, let's be honest, right? Like the food and bar service industry, the food and drink service industry, you're not going to get that penthouse on Park Avenue,
No.
right? Like, and I don't care, whether you have the hottest nightclub in New York City or not. The money just is not there.
No.
Right? Like, so he had to have realized that, but he didn't, because again, he was just kind of like, he knew his end goal, but had not a clue how to get there.
And maybe at this point in time, there's a bit of Tom Cruise fatigue. You think about it. The Outsiders, Risky Business, All the Right Moves, Legend, Top Gun, Color of Money, all came out before this. And then keep in mind too, Rain Man was also in 1988. So there's a whole lot of Tom Cruise going on in the theater at the time. And, one of the biggest things, especially after Top Gun. After Top Gun. And maybe it's just that the critics didn't take Tom Cruise seriously at the time. Oh, hey, he's in a movie about a bartender. I get it. Critics suck. And I think the critics are way... If you had told me that the critics gave this a 58% score, I would have been like, okay, I get that. 9? 9. And I feel like I'm talking German here because 9. It's not a 9% film. Like 9% tells me that there's a gun to my head in order to make me keep watching it. This is not that film. It is enjoyable. It is absolutely enjoyable. That should be the measure of the film, not what a critic thinks. Because otherwise, what have we been doing here for the past 3 years? Critics suck. Like what you like. This film is not a 9% film. But now we're going to find out who stands on top of the crop. So, Carrie, who is your MVP of Cocktail?
Coughlin's Law. When you're picking an actor, always go for the baddie. Yeah. You know what? Doug Coughlin, like, he was so good at being so bad. And when you pitched this movie, I was so looking forward to rewatching it, if anything, for Doug Coughlin.
We don't often agree on our MVP, but you're right. Coughlin's Law, when Brian Brown in this performance is available to be your MVP, you go with it.
Oh, wait, I have an honorable mention though.
Oh, let's hear it.
The first lawyer poet. Like, come on, like his I mean, that scene was just fun. It was just fun, and it led to the last barman.
The last barman poet. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, here's the thing. You're right in that it did paint a picture of what bar life could be like in those higher upscale kind of theme bar kind of things. And then you get to those places you're like, oh, this is just a bar. It let us down.
I want to find a place like Cocktail. Like I want to find a bar where
like the cell block?
The music is on point. The bartenders are, part of the show. They're dancing and mixing and I don't know. Even the cocktails, like what was that green drink that they made? Was that Sex on the Beach? I don't know. What was that?
No. If someone serves you a Sex on the Beach and it's green colored, you should not drink that. No,
wrong beach.
No.
No.
And I think there's the funny thing too, is that this was that kind of movie where it took a job that was really kind of mundane and just very ordinary and made people all of a sudden want to be that. Like, how many people wanted to be a bartender after watching Cocktail? How many people wanted to be, a bouncer after watching Roadhouse? How many people wanted to work in a record store after watching Empire Records, right? Like, this was one of those films that took an average, ordinary, everyday job and made it cool.
The only thing I don't understand about the bar itself is during the day it was desolate. Like, there might have been like 2 regulars that, were, I don't know, maybe they fell asleep and woke up there the next day. But at night it turns into like a complete nightclub. Like, everybody's dressed to the nines. And
yeah, I mean, like,
no, when they first met, the very first bar that he applied to and got the job at.
I mean, TGI Fridays. It was a TGI Fridays.
It was?
Yes.
Really? I thought it was like a dive bar.
Which no TGI Fridays in the history of TGI Fridays has ever been that fun. Really, it's never been that fun.
Again, I say very disappointing that reality didn't, mimic Cocktail and the whole experience of going out to the bar.
For the record, your lawyer poet, your yuppie poet is Kelly Connell, who has also starred in a number of films, including Spider-Man 2 as Dr. Isaacs. But he was also been in episodes of like Touched by an Angel and Boston Legal. He was in Boston Legal. There you go.
Okay, again, I did recognize him. He looked familiar, but it was just such a small part, but it was so fun.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, he was Carter Pike in Picket Fences for 73 episodes. He was in Hot Shots Part 2. He was in Northern Exposure for an episode. Like, good working actor kind of thing. And yes, those kind of moments in this film made bar life seem interesting, made it seem cool. It was something different. And it allowed the moment for Tom Cruise to be even cooler as the last barman poet. So very, very cool. Very good movie. Carrie, thank you so much for revisiting a 36-year-old film. God, I feel old now already. I feel so old. And to you, our listeners, thank you so much for listening to us go on about a 36-year-old film. Oh my God. I'm going to get my walker and my Metamucil and call it a day when this episode is done. But you guys know the drill. If there is a movie out there that you think is unfairly maligned or you think is so bad that there is no way in any bar that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on social media at Not That Badcast or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out all of our other shows. And thank you for listening for the last month to our first ever Razzies month of episodes. Be sure to go back and listen to all of our past Razzie episodes for this podcast and for Keep Watch Pats. Until next time, she's Carrie, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is It's Not That Bad, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.